If I had caught you in some indication, I would have explained, but since I can't, I tell you now that I think don't get too much into the indexing. Think about the ranking.
Thank you. I was just only wanting the background about the index rather than the numbering part of it, the work that goes behind it. But if I have some time
I think
after...
it sometimes ends up giving folk... The reason I agreed to work for Sarkozy's request is because not so much that I wanted an index, and we didn't give them an index either. We did do, the Commission did, was to give various indicators that we can use, but our concentration was more on agreed ranking and how each of these indicators could be improved. That included the GDP, which we are often criticized, but if you're going to use GDP and we will continue to use it, we might as well do it better. So that's what the Commission that Stiglitz and I and Job Opportunity and others were involved in tried to do.
Thank you for your insight.
And yes, we have the next question. We have quite a few more, and it looks like, by the time we finish the 4 questions, there will be time for the end of the session.
Thank you so much. I'm a student from Vienna and had a chance to study here in Bangkok.
Yeah, you have to come closer.
Oh, sorry. I'm not used to that. I'm a student from Vienna, from Austria.
From where I think, yeah.
And I got the chance to study at Thammasat for 1 semester. And my question is that, like what I experienced and saw in Thailand is that the families are playing a major role in society, and that they have a great connection and that they really care for each other. And so my question is, what you think, what role the families play in your inclusiveness approach and in your life center approach, and especially according to Thailand. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a book, not one that has come up in today's discussion, called Identity and Violence. And there I point out that each kind of identity, and being a member of a family is a serious identity, has its constructive side. It helps each other. Even the example from Sutta Nipata, where Buddha discusses mother's obligation to the child, and if it becomes dominant, there is a family-based idea behind it, clearly. And given that, family can play a constructive role. On the other hand, if you, in your jobs, if you prefer your nephew or your son rather than others who are more qualified, well, there is family playing a negative part. Similarly, nationalism could be a very big thing, which allows you to overcome differences of religion, community, communal violence, and so on. Not surprising that Gandhi and Nehru were quite keen on nationalism at the time of Hindu-Muslim riots. And yet, they were also very critical of nationalism when it comes to taking an approach about the global world, which is why they wanted to have non-allied nations treatment and indeed a different view of the United Nations and so on. So I think the family has very positive roles to play, but it also can play a very negative role like every other identity that you happen to have. That's one of the pieces of the book. And we have a choice. We are a member of a family, we are a member of a nation, we are citizens of a country. We have a religion, we have a profession, we have a gender, we belong to a class, we speak a language, we like some kinds of poetry. Each of these give us an identity. And depending on the context, we have to ask, what is the identity that is constructive and relevant here? Rather than follow saying, I am a Hindu, I am a Muslim, therefore it's my duty to kill the other. And religious extremism says that you have no choice, because that is your identity. If you're a Muslim, then you have to be an extremist Muslim, which is not what most Muslims are in the world. So that's the thing to look at. What are the constructive things? What are the non-constructive things? And recognize always there is a choice in deciding how do you want to see yourself in the context of any particular question that you're facing. My book called Identity and Violence, but the subtitle is The Illusion of Destiny. Our identity is not a destiny, it's a matter of choice, of reasoning. And by being rather in the line of what I was trying to emphasize earlier, the enlightened approach is to emphasize that. Enlightenment consists also asking the question, what identity is relevant here? What identity would be for me best to pursue in this context? So thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Now we have following 4 questions. I think
Yes.
with lady in the front.
Thanks. My name is Niyada Jetyin Angsari from Social Research Institute, Chulalongkorn University. When we were preparing the project on how to alleviate the inequity in the society, we discussed a lot on terms and concepts, and we came up with so many terms: justice, the essence of today, and then the fairness. So I would like to hear your thought on how these terms and how can we bring together the similarity or the differences and how we integrate together, that how can we work on to reduce the inequity in the society. Thank you.
Yeah. I think that's a very good question, not because it admits of a very clear answer. It's a big question because that's a question you have to go on asking, how can we pursue it? And 2 things to say on that. Of course, the first thing to do in any of these contexts is to talk and chat and see what are the ways to do. So I think in any solution, the dialogic part has to be an important part of the solution. But there could be many other ways of interacting with each other. I don't think we should try to formulate or formalize what are the ways that can be brought about. It's a question, it is a matter of a commitment of keeping the question in front. And I still, as I was mentioning earlier, to ask the right question is halfway to a solution. It applies here too. Even that when the solution is not at all clear, by insisting on the question rather than giving up, you explore things. What would be the way of doing it? I took it, one of the reasons for the National Health Assembly to which I went yesterday, is to identify questions more sharply, connected with the basic question, how can we get together? And as Anand said at the beginning, inclusiveness is a very important central issue here. How do we pursue the inclusiveness? So I think that question itself has a value, even though it doesn't have an unambiguous answer in a formulaic term. When I was a young economist in Trinity College, I don't know whether Anand remembers one of my teachers, Theo Safra, and he's a great Italian economist. He told me that you have to be very careful that the Cambridge vices in economics, in constructing an economic theory, is not to rest until a theory has been converted into a slogan. And I'm very afraid of slogans. I have no slogan in answer to it. But there is a theory. Argue, pursue, see what the alternatives are. It won't be a fetchy slogan if you read into a slogan. But yours is the right question. Thank you.
Savalak from TV Thai. As you know that on the May and April we have violence in Thailand. We have a riot. There's so many Thai people.
We have what?
Riot.
Riot.
Riot and violence.
Yeah.
Yes.
In China?
In Thailand.
Oh, in Thailand.
Yes.
Okay.
So most Thai people think it comes from the injustice in Thailand. As you say that it's a class war. And do you think the real justice can solve our problem in Thailand, and how?
You know what I have said on that. I mean, listen, you are Thai and I'm not. I've been here for 3 days now. I can tell you a lot about Thai food.
Okay.
But you don't rely on me to answer the question. But I have from time to time tried to address that question. I think it's a big mistake to think of it mainly as a class war. That is one aspect. There's a rich poor aspect, there's a rural urban aspect, there's a regional aspect. There's a complexity here. I think the last thing we want is a kind of reductionism that we got in analyzing that. And some of I complained about it in an earlier visit, I think it was in July, that, for example, even journals like the New York Times seem to see it as nothing other than a class war, which vastly oversimplifies a complexity about the rules following, the different groups involved, the different priorities, the leadership of each group, and the need for systematic change as well as orderly change, as opposed to a disorderly change. And I think all these require to address the issue in terms of all the divisions that come in. Now, I did try to say something not very profound. I ended up by saying these are very ordinary thoughts, but these were something which I presented yesterday at the Thai Health Assembly. And basically, there are many aspects to it, and even though quite often I complain that the newspapers never seem to get the story right, when I looked this morning at the Nation and the Bangkok Post, what they claimed I said, I think roughly that is what I did say. It was very only surprising me, but that is the case. So these are my views there. And it seems to just think of it as a simply one-dimensional concept would be a huge mistake, I believe. And I was upset when some of the finest media in the world, and there's no other paper in the world like the New York Times, when it does the mistake of such oversimplification, there is a problem involved.
Thank you. For the next two members of the audience, please keep your questions short because
she's also saying I should keep my answers short.
No, I did not say that. Just a question.